Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by iMazing and Linode. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. What's going on, Federico?
I'm doing okay. How are you, John?
I'm doing all right too. I mean, we're actually getting some warm weather here in Chicago, so that's good. I feel kind of holed up in my house. I mean, it's hard to talk about tech these days and not talk about coronavirus. It's a terrible time of year because there's not much news anyway, and now there's that news, and so now it's all the news is about canceling conferences, and we're all kind of sitting around waiting for WWDC to fall by the wayside. But we thought today we would do something a little, maybe hopefully a little more positive than that, and
Yes.
focus us on some apps and some favorite apps, because we've been talking about things like subscriptions recently and some other apps. And the thing about utilities is that they can be neglected, I think, in some respects, or like overlooked, I think, by a lot of users, because they're hard for developers to make a living on sometimes, because it's very hard to charge a subscription for them. And they're usually paid up front. And they're also the kind of apps that, for a lot of them, you only use once in a while. Maybe you use it once a week or every month. But there are some really great utilities out there. We've written about a lot of them over the years. But, once a utility gets to the point where it's kind of feature complete, and that does kind of happen if it's, just performing a couple of functions, then there's not a lot of new news about them. And maybe, listeners haven't heard about some of these because some of them we haven't written about in a while. So I thought we would go through some of our utilities and talk about the ones that we use a lot and the ones that we like a lot, and take it from there. What do you think?
I totally agree, because I love utilities. I love these kinds of apps that do one thing and they do it extremely well. And I feel I totally agree with you in the sense that even ourselves, when we do episodes about apps, we tend to pick more complex apps that have like a deeper feature set that you can do an entire episode about. But there's I have all kinds of utilities on my iPhone, on the iPad. I have a folder for them. And even if I open them maybe once a week, or, just whenever I need them, even if it's like 6 times a year, whenever I use them, these are the kinds of apps that put a smile on my face, because they fix one problem for you, and they fix it cleverly and with such thoughtfulness that it really reminds me, there's somebody out there who had the same problem that I have now, and this person made an app for it, and so they are, to this day, we constantly talk about complex apps with complex business models and subscriptions and team features and all of automation, right, and all of that. But these apps are the kinds of apps that back then, when the App Store was young, and you would say there's an app for that. These are those kinds of apps, those kinds of utilities. And so which is why I love talking about them.
Yeah, they're really great. And some of these utilities that we use on iOS, they're actually so good that even if I'm working at my Mac, I switch over to iOS for doing certain tasks, because I have apps that are so much better there than I do on the Mac for doing things. And yeah, that's why don't we dig into them? Do you want me to lead off with one of mine?
Go for it. Yes.
All right. So I picked 3, and I'm going to start, and they're all related to images, because you and I spend a lot of time with screenshots and editing them and doing things with them. And the first app that I want to mention is Metafo. And Metafo is a metadata app for iOS and iPadOS. And it lets you do a bunch of different things. I mean, you can remove metadata with it. So, if you're sharing images and you don't want the location data to go along with the image and social media or whatever, you can use it for that. I use it probably most often, though, just for viewing the metadata of an image when I need to know, for instance, how wide something is, what format it's in, that kind of real basic information that just doesn't get surfaced really in the Photos app. Mm-hmm. And because it has an extension, I just tap on the extension and see, what's going on in terms of, is it a PNG, is it a JPEG, what's the size, and that sort of thing. But it does a whole lot more than that. And one of the most recent iterations of the app actually found out a way to figure out if something, if an image was taken with deep fusion, which it was like a really obscure metadata thing that, Apple had, I think, mentioned to some publication that they were going to change it and quote fix it, because I guess they didn't want to let people know that things, whether something's got deep fusion technology going on or not. But Metafo was able to do that because it's so deep into the metadata that goes with an image that it was able to figure out which images use that technology and which don't. I mean, do you use Metafo at all?
I do, and I love using Metafo to take a look at these kinds of info. And I know that a lot of people were using Metafo before for checking a photo's location and remove location metadata. Now that functionality is actually part of iOS 13.
Right.
When you share a photo from Photos using the share sheet, if you take a look at the share sheet, at the upper section of the share sheet, you will see an options button. And if you tap that, you're actually taken into this page that lets you configure the kind of metadata that you want to include. And you can exclude the location metadata from a photo by just flipping a switch in this page of the share sheet. So a lot of people stop using Metafo because of this native option, which I think is great to have because it's an important feature for the system to offer. But Metafo exposes a lot more, like the lens that you use, the camera model that you use, the smartphone, of course, and the vendor, and like the focal length of an image, all these kinds of technical readouts that you don't get from the Photos app, and you probably never will get from the Photos app on iOS because most people don't need them. But if you're like me and want to do like Photos automation, in shortcuts, you can actually do things with the EXIF metadata of a photo. And if you want to double check all of this info, Metafo is a great utility for that because it exposes all of these different data points.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And besides just taking away the metadata, you can also edit it. So for instance, there is a location section which has a little, uses Apple Maps. It has a map and it shows you where you took the photo. If it's not correct for some reason, you can change it. So that's kind of nice as well.
Yeah, so I also have an image utility, but this one is super simple and it doesn't have the level of complexity of your pick, John. So my app is a super simple utility. It's called, and I mean I'm just guessing the pronunciation. It's called Blair. It's Blear. Would you say Blear? Maybe Blair.
I think maybe Blear.
Maybe? Blear. Okay. Yeah, I guess. So Blear we'll go with that. So Blear lets you blur an image. That's all that it does.
Okay.
So let me explain. I am very particular with my wallpapers. I do not like using photos. I love my girlfriend, I love my dogs, but I will never use a photo of them as my wallpapers. I'm sorry. I just don't like seeing icons or the lock screen on top of photos. So I like using either solid blocks of color, or my preference goes to gradients or abstract shapes that also have some kind of gradients. And I veer towards like bluish or purplish, maybe red sometimes, but those kinds of colors for my gradients. And I've discovered though that it can be really hard for me to find great like pre-made gradient based wallpapers, which is why two of my picks today will be about making your own color gradients. So the first pick, Blear, is literally a single screen that has two buttons at the bottom. One lets you take a photo and the other lets you save an image. So you press the first button in the bottom left corner and you can choose take a photo or choose one from the library. You choose a photo from the Photos app, can be any photo. So right now I'm picking a photo, let's see, of the Colosseum. Now, if you slide the slider all the way to the left, it'll be a small amount of blurring on top of the photo. But if you drag it all the way to the right, the entire photo will be completely blurred to the point where you'll just end up with this gradient that takes the main colors of the photo blurs it all, and it just looks like a mesh of colors in a
Right.
beautiful gradient. And then when you get the amount of blur and the kind of gradient that you like, you just tap the button in the bottom right corner, which is a checkbox. You tap that and the image is saved to the Photos app. You can go to Photos and use it as a wallpaper. Now, of course, the quality of the blurred images that you get with this system depends on the kind of photo that you pick, the kind of main color of a photo. But like right now, for example, I just grabbed a photo of Sylvia that I took while our hue lights were set to purple. And if I drag the slider all the way to the right, the subject completely disappears, and I'm left with this beautiful gradient that goes from deep purple to sort of pinkish like color. It's really pretty. And like I didn't have to write code like CSS code or like hex color codes to make this gradient. I just picked a photo, blurred it, and now I have an image that is suitable for my home screen.
Yeah, it's interesting because you really don't need a particularly nice photo to make this work really well. I just took one of my desk, and it's not a remarkable picture at all. But when I blur it all the way to the right, I get an interesting combination of blues coming off my display and orange from my iPad Mini cover on the desk and that kind of thing. It's really neat. It also seems to zoom the picture in a little bit.
It does.
So that way you can then kind of shift it around and find the particular part of the image that has the colors that you want. Yeah, this is really nice.
Yeah, you can pan around with one finger so that you get the area of the picture that you prefer.
Yeah, that's very nice. I like that. I'm gonna start playing around with that this weekend. All right. For my next one, it's another image app. This is a Notable. And a Notable is, we talked about how some of these apps are ones that we don't use every day. I don't use a Notable every single day, but I do use it an awful lot because it is a screenshot editor. You can use it, I guess, on regular photos as well, but I always use it for screenshots because you can do things like, arrows and squares and circles and text, basically overlay all sorts of information on top of an image that's really handy for screenshots. But the one that I use probably the most is the pixelation, so that if we are, I'm doing a screenshot and it's got some personal information in it that I don't want to share, it's really easy just to kind of draw a little boundary around the stuff that is private, and it does a very nice job of blurring it without looking bad. And I like that a lot. The other one I guess I use a lot too is the magnifying glass, where you draw out a circle and that magnifies a certain area of the image. And then there's a dot in the middle, and you drag that out, and you place the end of that dot on top of whatever you want to magnify, and it's magnified inside this circle. So you can then move the circle wherever it looks good on the image, and then resize it and do all kinds of things. It's pretty neat. And I mean, there's a lot of depth here because, the lines, the arrows and the circles and everything that you're typing, you can change the color of all of those things. You can do highlighting as well. It's just a fantastic utility. It's free, but there's, for the more advanced features, there's an in-app purchase for that. So once you're done, you can then use the share sheet to either save it back to Photos, either as a new image or modifying the original picture that you took, or share it some other way. And it's I don't know, it's the kind of utility that I find myself going back to over and over. And I guess I should mention too that there's a Photos extension. You can actually use this app right from inside the Photos app, although I do that less because there is actually I think it's a bug, but maybe it's a feature of iOS where if you use the image from inside of the Photos app, it is going to end up being a JPEG, and it will destroy any transparency that you had in a PNG that you took. And for us, when we do the screenshots that are in the frames of hardware, there's always a transparency. And if that turns into a white background because it's converted to a JPEG, it doesn't look great with the dark mode on the website. So I like to go straight to a Notable and edit things in there instead of doing it in the Photos app.
Yeah, Notable is another favorite of mine. I've been using it for years. Back in the day, I used to use Sketch. Remember Sketch?
Oh, yeah. Some people still use that. I heard someone talking about it on Twitter recently. Yeah.
Some people still do. And then Evernote bought Sketch and
made it like Evernote.
So that was bad. My second pick, another image utility. This one is called Neon. So Neon is a color picker, is a powerful color picker and sort of like color generator for iOS. It was recently updated, I believe, to version 2. It's now universal. It's on the iPhone and on the iPad. It syncs with iCloud. And it's really well done because it does, it's sort of like a developer utility, but you can use it even if you're not a developer. So the primary feature is you can organize your colors and gradients. So the app can lets you organize these color sets and these gradient sets, and for each color you get a lot of advanced information. Again, on the surface, it is a developer utility in the sense that like you can copy the UI color value of a color or the hex code, or like you can view the individual red, green, and blue and alpha values. You get like there's a section when you open a color or a gradient that says like show me the related web or CSS colors, and all of these colors are organized as palettes, and you can view the hex code for each of them. It's very much a developer utility, but even if you're not a developer, what you can do is there's in the main section in the main page of the app, in the upper toolbar, there's a flame icon, and if you tap it, this is it lets you pick random colors or random gradients, and you can flip through them. So the random colors, you can flip through them as like cards, and the gradients you can scroll through multiple options, and these are randomly generated for you. And as you flip through the gradients, for example, if you see one you like, you can just tap on it, and then you can choose copy this gradient to the clipboard or save it. Now, whenever I see a gradient that I like, I save it to my library. Then I go back to the library, and when you see the gradient in there, you can tap on it to view it on a dedicated page. There's a share button, and when you tap share, the app will ask you, do you want to include the hex code, like the string on top of the image? If you choose no, you will be able to then save just the gradient image in two different formats. One of them is Instagram story. So if you want to have like a custom gradient as the backdrop for an Instagram story, you can do it with Neon. So you just get the gradient, you remove the code from the image, and you save it in the Instagram story format, which is 9:16, I believe. So you can use it as a custom background. Or if you choose everything else as a format, it'll just be saved in the Photos app. And from there, you can use it as a wallpaper for your iPhone or iPad. So I've been saving a bunch of random gradients that I like. I have now a library of gradients, and I also saved them to Photos. And right now, my home screen, I'm using a blue to purple gradient that I got via Neon. So it's a developer utility, but even if you don't have any programming requirements for color, you can use it as a consumer app for discovering colors. And of course, you can import photos and get the color from photos, or there's a camera view and you can get the color from what's around you. Like a bunch of color utilities do this nowadays.
Right.
But Neon has the additional aspect of being universal, syncing your color and gradient sets with iCloud, but also having this random feature that generates colors and gradients for you.
The syncing is really nice because not many color picker apps do that. And I really do like this random gradient and random color generator. I've not seen something like this before. And I just, while you were talking, came up with a really nice gradient that I think I'll put on my home screen. Yeah, that's really neat. Another color picker that I like a lot is Cone, which I think I covered in Club Mac Stories not too long ago. And one of the things about color pickers is, boy, I've tried an awful lot of them over the years. They seem to come and go a lot. Like they don't get developed for very long or updated very often. Looking at this one, it looks like it's been updated quite a bit since it first came out. And I think Cone is pretty actively developed as well. And they do tend to have a little bit of a developer focus because you're right. You can get the CSS or the hex or the UI color or the NS color or whatever it happens to be. And but you don't need those. And a lot of times, I mean, I end up using the RGB values or the hex values for things like on the website or in Photoshop and stuff pretty frequently. So it's nice to have something like that available on iOS as well. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by iMazing, the well-known must-have Mac tool for backing up and managing iPhone and iPad files and data. This app is updated all the time, which is something that I love and appreciate. And with version 2.11, they've introduced a brand new way to manage and transfer iPhone and iPad photos to the Mac. Within just seconds of connecting your device, its entire photo library becomes available, streamed straight to the Mac. The team at iMazing has worked really hard on this to make it super performant. Even browsing the largest photo libraries via Wi-Fi is virtually seamless because of intelligent prioritization of what gets loaded when in the background. Photos and videos can be viewed in high resolution and even full screen mode without importing them to the Mac's photo library first. iMazing also displays detailed metadata, everything from focal length and ISO and shutter speed to file name, size, format. You want it, you get it. There's all kinds of metadata here. Also, there are additional assets such as originals, edited items, and pre-bokeh effect versions of portrait mode photos that can be easily previewed and exported as well. Exporting photos displays an export option sheet letting you choose exactly what to include in the export. It puts you in control of what you want. Used in combination with iMazing's Time Machine-like backups, the new Photos tool enables easy browsing and recovery of items which have been completely removed from your device and from iCloud. Just double-click on any backup snapshot while browsing photos and browse its photo library just as if you jumped back in time. Photographers will absolutely appreciate the attention to detail and raw power of this update, and casual users will love how easy it is to browse and export photos with iMazing. The new Photos tool is available in the macOS version of iMazing as a free update to all iMazing 2 license holders, and they're hard at work on a Windows version, which will be out later this summer. If you're not already an iMazing user, browsing your photo library and backing it up are entirely free. So there's no reason not to try it right now by going to imazing.com/downloads. Plus, there's a special deal just for listeners of this show. iMazing is 30% off on all licenses from March 9th through March 16th. So be sure to check it out right away. Again, that special 30% offer is from March 9th, 2020 to March 16th, 2020. So go on over to imazing.com/download and check it out today. Our thanks to iMazing for their support of the show. All right, Federico, I am going to talk a little bit now about Pixo. And Pixo is another app that I use for screenshots. And I think I put this list together right in the middle of putting together a Shortcuts Rewind story for the site. And that's why my mind was on this kind of stuff. But Pixo, it allows you to take multiple screenshots that wouldn't fit in one screen of information and stitch them together. And it has the ability to do that automatically. But typically what I like to do is, and this comes in handy, for instance, when you're taking screenshots of a shortcut and the shortcut extends beyond one screen of information, you just take screenshots to make sure you've caught everything. And then you select the screenshots that you want to use and you open them all up. And for us, I mean, I guess usually when I'm doing things like shortcuts, they're vertical, but you could also do horizontal. And it has a really neat UI for stitching those together because there are little pencils in the border between each screenshot, and you tap it, and that makes it editable. And you can drag the images kind of above and below each other so that the edges disappear under the image above it or below it. And it's a little hard to visualize when I'm explaining it, but it's a really intuitive way to kind of match up where one image leaves off and the other one picks up. And you can do that, the top edge of the 3 or 4 images or whatever number it is that you have, the border in between each of them, and then the bottom edge. And so I do that, and it's very quick. It's a very quick way to kind of line everything up perfectly and then save it back out to Photos or wherever you want to use it. So I've been using that more and more often lately. I mean, that's just one of the things it does. It does a whole bunch of other things, but really just stitching together photos is the main use case for me.
Very nice. Yeah, I've also been using this one a lot. Like whenever I want to show a long shortcut to somebody,
Right.
It's so nice to be able to stitch it all together vertically and to have like a single image. It's very nice. Do you use it more on your iPad now that you're doing the Shortcuts Rewind series on the site?
Yeah, it's always on my iPad. It works really well there because what I've been doing with the shortcuts there is first I take the shots, the screenshots, then I stitch them together. And then I end up doing a second crop, which is to get rid of the sidebar, where the actions live, the actions directory. And then I chop it up. I re-chop it up, but I chop it up the way I want it chopped up, not the way, the screenshots would require because of the amount of information that fits. So that's kind of the process I go through in terms of getting the raw materials. And then I drag all that stuff into Photoshop. Actually, I can't drag it in. They don't have drag and drop. I open it from within the image picker inside of Photoshop and use Photoshop to kind of do the finishing touches. And it's been a great workflow. I mean, I've gotten it down to the point where it's really quite fast, even though I'm doing a fair amount of both custom cropping as well as adding other elements to each of the images, like text and numbered steps and that sort of thing.
Nice. So I'm done with the image utilities now. My
All
next
right.
pick is a TV show tracker. So if you know me, you know that I've always been unsatisfied with TV show tracking utilities ever since Couchy, which was the best one, was discontinued and removed from the App Store. Couchy was really good. It was a TV show tracker that integrated with Tracked TV, which is the popular web service to sync your library of TV shows that you follow and episodes that you've seen. And ever since Couchy's demise, I've been on the lookout for the next great TV tracker utility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've found the next best replacement yet. And I know that a bunch of people will get in touch with me. Oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Yes, I've tried them all. And none of them gets the basic features just right in the same way that Couchy used to. But I've been using this new one that it's very, very nice for a couple of reasons. So this app is called Hobby. It's HOBI.
Right.
I guess it's like a pun on having a hobby. That's my interpretation.
Okay.
I guess
I'll go with that. I have no idea myself.
Does it sound like anything else? A hobby?
No, it doesn't.
It really doesn't. And also the icon is kind of uninspired. The icon is like dark gray with the word hobby on top of it. So,
Right.
But don't let that discourage you because the app looks really nice. It integrates with Tracked. So if you have a Track.tv account, you can log in and import your existing library of shows and episodes. So there's two main things that I like. The watch list is a vertical. So the main screen is a vertical list of the episodes that you're behind on any given series. What's nice about this is that each show, so episodes are grouped by show. So you don't have a list of like multiple episodes, like as separate items. Like all episodes are grouped by show, and each show will tell you have 2 episodes left or you have 5 left. And there's also a progress bar. So you get the text label and the colored progress bar. Now, what's nice is that if you tap on the episode info button, it defaults to the oldest unseen episode. So if you're catching up on a series, for example, I've yet to start the 7th season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Uh-huh.
And if I now Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the watch list says 5 left because 5 episodes of season 7 have aired in the US so far. And if I tap on episode info, a card slides up from the bottom of the display, right? From the bottom of the screen. There's a button to mark the episode as watched, but it also tells me this episode aired on February 7th, 2020. So it's very easy to go through multiple episodes, but just tap in, the card comes up, you mark it as seen, and you go on and so forth. You can also open like the individual show page, and you can mark an entire season as seen, or you can select multiple episodes and mark them all at once. So, and in all of these, it looks really nice. It tells you like the network where a show is available. Unfortunately, one of the features that I really like in other TV show trackers, and I believe Television Time was one that does it really well. It doesn't have a button to open the episode or the TV show in the iTunes store. So if you're somebody like me that still buys episodes from iTunes because you cannot use American TV networks outside of the US, unfortunately, Hobby does not have a button to open the shows page in the iTunes store. But I still do that manually. I open the iTunes store app on my phone and I search for, I don't know, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then I go in and I buy the episodes manually.
This does look really good. I've not actually seen this before. This is a good one. I've tried a million of these myself, and you're right. It always seems like there's something. First of all, I think because of Track TV, because they have such an extensive API, that everybody builds these apps and they almost all look the same. And it's very rare that you find one that does things a little differently, and this clearly does.
Yeah. What I really love, though, is the My Shows section. So this is the best timeline for upcoming TV shows that I've seen in a while. It's a vertical timeline. There's this UI on the right side that is like multiple dots connected to each other, and it's sorted in chronological order from the next upcoming TV episode to the future ones. So, for example, the first item in my list is Young Sheldon, and the purple dot on the right side says 6 hours. So a new episode airs in the US in 6 hours. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, also 6 hours. Mom, which is another excellent comedy, airs in 7 hours. And then after that, Schitt's Creek, 5 days, and so forth, up until, for example, Westworld season 3 premiere in 10 days. I didn't know that. Well, actually, I knew that, but I forgot. It's coming up on HBO. So the timeline is really well done because at a glance, like, it's super easy to tell what's coming up in both in the short term and the longer term. And also, what is nice here is that if you keep scrolling, the timeline ends at some point, but then there's 2 different sections waiting for release date. So if a show has been renewed, but there's no info on the release date for a new season yet, the shows will end up here. So, for example, Dickinson and For All Mankind and The Morning Show from Apple TV Plus, Lucifer from Netflix, Succession from HBO. All of these have been renewed for another season, but because there's no release date yet, they are grouped together in the waiting for release date section. And again, looks really, really polished, really well done. And finally, there's a last section at the very bottom called Ended, and this is just groups all the TV shows that you've seen and which have ended, no more seasons for them. So, for example, in my library, I see Breaking Bad and Chernobyl and Gossip Girl and Lost and all of these other TV shows. So, Hobby. There's a Discover section. You can go in there and get suggestions, but I don't care. I like discovering things by myself. And there's also a statistics page, which is kind of fun because you can see like what's your most watched TV show, like your favorite genres. For example, if you want to know about me, John, in my life, ever since I've been using Tracked.tv, I've watched, time spent watching TV shows, 3 months and 2 days. I've seen 3,560 episodes of exactly 43 TV shows. My favorite genres are drama and comedy. You spend the most time watching The Big Bang Theory and 2.5 Men. Of course, 12 seasons will do that to you.
It will.
And you can gain points. I don't care about this stuff, but it's kind of fun to see this data.
Yeah, this looks really, really great. I'm going to give it a try. I have used Track TV on and off. I don't have like nice complete statistics like you do, but yeah, this looks like a fun one to try. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Linode. Whether you're working on a personal project or managing your enterprise's infrastructure, Linode has the pricing, support, and scale you need to take your project to the next level. They have 11 data centers worldwide, including their newest center in Sydney, Australia. And with their enterprise-grade hardware, S3-compatible storage options, and their next-generation network, Linode delivers performance you expect at a surprisingly good price. Get started with Linode today with a $20 credit for listeners of this show, and you'll get access to dedicated CPU plans with physical cores reserved just for you, GPU compute plans suitable for AI, machine learning, and video processing, block storage and object storage that can scale to your storage requirements, one-click installs of their most popular apps, including WordPress, LampStack, and game servers for Minecraft, and a whole lot more. Just go to linode.com/appstories and use the promo code AppStories2020 when creating a new Linode account. And you'll get $20 off your next project. Oh, and Linode is hiring too. So if that's something that might interest you, go over to linode.com/careers and find out more. Again, to get that $20 credit toward your next project, go to linode.com/appstories and use the promo code AppStories2020. Our thanks to Linode for their support of the show. You have one more app that you're going to raise. Do you want to talk about it? This is one that I know really well too because I've been using it lately as well. But why don't you explain what it is?
Yeah, so the app is called, do you say Unicar? Or
yeah, I think so. That's what I would
because
say.
Because it's character. So it's a mix of Unicode and characters. So Unicar is a utility that lets you copy Unicode characters. So before emoji were a thing, Unicode characters were also a thing. These are like the symbols and the glyphs that you see sometimes around the web, like the Apple logo, for example, is a Unicode character.
Right.
Or Mac stories. Recently, for the Shortcuts Rewind series that John has been doing, you may have seen some of these Unicode characters with the numbers that John uses to mark up different sections of a shortcut. Those are also like Unicode number glyphs. Unicode, there's all kinds of Unicode characters. There's thousands of them. And Unicar lets you easily browse them and search them and copy them to your clipboard so that you can reuse them in other apps. What I like about Unicar is that the symbols are organized by category. So you get like your letter-like symbols, your pictographs, your arrows, your musical symbols, bullets, stars, and all of these different categories. You can search, and you can search in a bunch of different ways. Like you can search by name, but you can also search by drawing a symbol. So like if you have a rough shape in mind, you can draw the symbol with your finger and the app will do its best. We'll use some kind of machine learning, I believe, to try and determine what kind of symbol you're looking for. And I never seem to get it right. I think I've got a match like twice in all the dozens of, but it's kind of fun to always try the game every single time. And once you've found the symbol, like for example, the trademark symbol, right? You can tap and hold and you will get a context menu. And this is a really good example of a context menu because the upper preview section of the context menu will show you the character and the official name. So for example, the TM, the official name is trademark. So not a single word, but trade space mark sign. And you will get the code, like the Unicode point and the HTML entity. And then you can choose, like from the context menu, you get a bunch of options. You can add it to your favorites, or you can copy the symbol, or you can choose to copy like the name, the code, the HTML version, the character info. It's a full-featured utility for searching and copying symbols. And it's on the iPhone, it's on the iPad. You can choose a list view. I use it on my phone, honestly, like most of the time. And I usually just open it, search for what I'm looking for, copy the symbol, and that's it.
All right. Well, I use it very differently than you do because as you mentioned, I have been using it for Shortcuts Rewind, and what I use it for are those steps that I overlay on the shortcut to kind of help people follow along in the text. about what I'm talking about. And the reason I did that instead of using some sort of image of numbers is that it's just easier because I really don't need more than what's available in Unicode. And because they're a font set, basically, you can make them any size you want. So I can adjust their size and they look just as crisp at any particular size. So it saves me time that way. And they're just layers in Photoshop that are text layers that I use. But I don't use the app, I use its keyboard. So I enabled the keyboard. And so as I'm working in Photoshop, when I am ready to start putting those characters in, I just switch over to the text tool, tap the screen, and then long press on the little down arrow in the keyboard row at the bottom of the screen and bring up the Unicode, the Unicode keyboard and tap the number that I need. It's really handy. And the app's got a lot of little nice touches because, for instance, that keyboard, it always remembers where I was last in the keyboard. So I don't have to constantly, find where the circle numerals are. It's always there. So and that's really the only thing I'm using it for regularly on the iPad. So basically, I did a shortcuts rewind maybe 3 weeks ago. I came back to it a couple of weeks later, and it was right there where I left off with the keyboard, and I was able to drop the numbers in really quickly. So it's been fantastic for that sort of thing.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I mean, Unicode has been around for a long time, actually. And it's always nice to see a developer who's dedicated to improving this kind of utility over time and adopting new features like context menus and iPad multitasking. And so it's always nice to see this sort of constant updates, even for something that on the surface is quite simple, but nothing is ever so simple as what it may look like on the surface.
Right. And it's a free app with an in-app purchase to unlock certain of the characters, which I think is a good approach for an app like this because you can kind of get a sense for the way it's organized and the features it has with what it offers for free. And if it's something you find you're going to end up using a lot, then you can buy it. And I've bought it because it's one that I do find stuff in the other sets that aren't part of the free part that I end up using pretty regularly, including these numerical symbols, which I think are part of the premium package.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a very handy app. All right, Federico, I think that's probably a good place to stop for this week. I want to thank our two sponsors again. That's iMazing and Linode. Go check them out. There are links in the show notes. You can find me and Federico over at Mac Stories and on Club Mac Stories. Federico is also on Twitter and Instagram as @Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.